Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's Chris with Inside the U. Today I want to break down my 10 takeaways and tidbits from interviews following the 6th spring practice based on talking to Manny Diaz, Mike Harley, and Navaughn Donaldson. Okay, my number one takeaway and tidbit from today's practice is the spring scrimmage. The first one will be on Saturday. I think that's great. They're planning on having a few throughout the spring, but just that first one, there's a lot to get to, and I will touch on some details with that later on in this video. But basically, Manny Diaz said he's looking forward. Obviously, they got a lot of veterans returning, but he's looking forward to seeing the young guys, not just the mid-year enrollees, but the second-year guys who didn't get a chance last spring to have a full spring practice session. So he's looking forward to seeing those young second-year guys, see how they do, how they perform. He didn't specify by name, but you've got to believe he's really looking forward to seeing how the quarterbacks do. Okay, my second takeaway has to do with the quarterback position in general. Big news for Miami. They get the commitment from a 4-star quarterback, Ja'Cory Brown, out of Valdosta, Georgia. So a question, while Manny Diaz can't speak specifically on recruits who are unsigned, he did speak about the quarterback position in general. Since he took over as head coach at Miami, he has talked about the importance of recruiting quarterback at a high level. And basically what he said when he first took the job in 2019 there in January, just felt like they've got to have high-level quarterbacks if they want to get Miami to where they want it to be as a program. And he said basically also, look, when Miami has a great quarterback, they usually have great teams competing for championships. And he said that's based on the history of the program. So recruiting quarterback is certainly a big emphasis for the program, for the Hurricanes, Manny Diaz. And obviously with college football in general, certainly the quarterback position is important. But I thought it was good just that Manny mentioned these things because it is very important, and it's great that he addressed it. My number 3 takeaway from today's practice has to do with Navaughn Donaldson. So Navaughn is back. Last year, he missed most of the season with an injury, recovering from a year ago, but he's back. And I want to get into some more details about where he's playing right now, but basically on the offensive line, the things that stood out to me today was, were his numbers. He's doing a great job with his weight. He feels like he's making a concerted effort to really get down on some things. And one of the reasons why he's able to maybe shed some weight lately is because he's changed his diet. He said he's not eating rice. He's really focused on chicken, salmon, fish, some shrimp, and salads. So he's really focusing on changing his diet. Feels great. And actually, Mike Harley said he's actually running in practice and doing a good job in terms of when they do their offense. And he said he's never seen that before, the way that Navaughn is moving. So I think that's a good sign. Navaughn also mentioned that he max benched at 405 pounds, which is the most he's ever been able to do at Miami. And he actually thinks like when they do more testing later on, he thinks he could get closer to the 450 range was the number that he put out there. So great to see Navaughn is feeling good, moving well. And like I said, I'll get more into him, but it's certainly a good sign for Navaughn right now. My number 4 takeaway and tidbit is Mike Harley. And I've spoken about Mike quite a bit already in the spring. I really like his confidence. But today, it was brought up that he basically every day he looks in the mirror and he has his goals written on the mirror. And this is new for him, but basically he looks at the mirror, soaks in his goals and really tries to achieve them on a daily basis. And I think that's great. It's one thing for players to talk about how they want to be better. I think it's great when they actually identify goals, personal goals, and things they want to achieve. And then when you make it public, and this has been, if you followed some other things in terms of goal setting, one of the things that people talk about is when you announce it as publicly, your goals, it actually helps you achieve them because you feel like you've got to be accounted for and you kind of stick to that. So I think that's a good sign for Mike. And he said there's no pressure on it, but certainly every day he's looking to do better. And I think that's great. He's just a guy that, again, playing with confidence and has a good aura about him right now. And I think he's going to have a big season. I think he's definitely in line for that. So my number 5 takeaway talks about a question that I asked Mike, and that's about Mark Pope and D. Wiggins. Okay, so there's a lot of attention on these two guys. Didn't have the year that you guys were hoping for, and they were hoping for last year, kind of up and down, played a lot. Some people are certainly looking to the freshmen and Charleston Rambo. Some guys may be taking their spots, but I just want to get Mike's take on how these two guys are doing in the spring. Just because there's not a lot of attention on them right now, and a lot of people are actually kind of moving on past them and understand why they're doing that. So Mike actually said that, D's been dealing with some things, so he's not been out there. It's basically, don't have a lot of clarification on that. But he talked about Mark Pope, and he said flatly, it's all mental with Mark. He said he's looking good with his quickness, his speed, his route running ability. He really likes what he's seen already in these 6 spring practices. So, and basically, he's coming along, and it's a new year, and just kind of reminded people of that. And so we'll see how Mark does. Just, it sounds like he's doing well. And, certainly it has to do it, it's great to do it in practice. Everyone knows for guys like Mark and D that doing it in games and producing will be the ultimate test. So, but good signs from Mark that he's improving and doing well out there. And again, just trying to get an update on a guy that sometimes is certainly overlooked at this point in time. Okay, my number 6 takeaway has to do with the running game. I asked Manny Diaz about this because, again, a lot of attention on the quarterbacks, Mike Harley, the passing game, receivers, and how things are going there with all the guys competing. But I wanted to ask about the running game because we have not heard much about it. So I asked Manny, how's the running game coming along in terms of how they're running the ball, but also how they're stopping the run? Because I think those are both 2 key points for this upcoming season. And Coach actually did say, look, yes, we know that they're high points of emphasis for us this year, and they're certainly taking high emphasis on that. But he did say he thinks they'll have a better indication on how things are going after the first scrimmage. So not a big update from Coach Diaz with the running game, but I did want to mention it just real quick. But it definitely is a point of emphasis and something that they're going to look forward to when you get into some more live hitting type situations. But definitely something to keep in mind moving forward, and plan to have more updates on the running game during the spring. Number 7 has to do with Tyrique Stevenson. I mentioned him quite a bit, cornerback, but his name keeps coming up. And basically when other reporters are asking players, asked Mike Harley today about how he's doing, you're hearing basically the same kind of stuff with Tyrique. Just, again, Mike said he's a student of the game, really bringing a lot of expertise to the position. Those two have actually had conversations like, what are you seeing on certain plays? And I think that's great with Tyrique able to do that. And I think it's great for the defensive back room just to provide that experience and that knowledge of the game. And you can't have enough guys like that. And Tyrique's one of those guys that I'm looking forward to hearing how he's doing in coverage. And I think in these scrimmages, we might hear more about Tyrique. Going to my 8th takeaway goes back to Navaughn Donaldson. I asked Navaughn about right guard, left guard, because we've been hearing he's been playing more right guard in the spring, whereas in 2019, his last full season, he started all the games at left guard. When he was out there, he has started at right guard early in his career, but basically I was just curious about, what's the biggest transition, the biggest difference about those two positions. And he said there's not a big difference, and I'm not surprised to hear that. But one thing he did mention was, one thing he's noticing is when he's playing left guard, he usually uses his left hand quite a bit in initial, push, and then at right guard, he's having to kind of adjust to using his right hand a lot more. And basically what he was saying was, especially in one-on-one situation, one-on-one drills, he's kind of has to train his mind a little bit more, to use that right hand. It's not as natural for him at this time. So he's using the left hand quite a bit. And it has to do with, basically how the rest of his body positions when he uses the wrong hand. So he's definitely working on that. I don't think it's going to be an issue. It's just one of those transition things going on right now in spring ball, and basically it's going to be something that gets worked out pretty easily, I would assume. So number 9 has to do with position changes. Coach Diaz has talked about this before in the spring. There are certain guys that have some position flexibility for the team, and when Coach was asked about it, he said they are basically keeping guys where they're at right now. He wants guys to have that first scrimmage, and then they'll make some adjustments after that. I think a guy like Amari Carter might be one of those guys to pay attention to. We've talked about Jalen Harrell a little bit from that corner safety spot, and there might be some other guys that we're not thinking about at this time, but they might want to explore a little bit more moving forward, once again, after that first spring scrimmage on Saturday. So we'll see how that goes. They're definitely open to that, and I think that's the big thing, and it's something that they're going to evaluate, try to maximize their roster. Certainly something to keep in mind. Okay, and just lastly, my 10th and final takeaway tidbit of the spring practice today has to do with the UM's Pro Day coming up on Monday. And it's just a quick tidbit, and that's that Manny Diaz said he's looking forward to seeing these guys on campus. You know, the guys like Greg Rousseau, Jalen Phillips, you know, he's expecting those big names to be there. Brevin Jordan's another guy. And Quincy Roche. Those are kind of the four names you're hearing. And Manny said, look, this is probably going to be our smallest pro day. And he thinks, you know, he's hoping all those guys perform well, shows that they can compete and do well there on pro day. And that he thinks the personalities of all those guys will shine and believes in their abilities. And they've already put that on film already from their careers at Miami. So he thinks that it's going to be a good pro day. Looking forward to having guys out. It's going to be a smaller pro day with a number of people there, not just participants, but also personnel from NFL teams. So definitely stay locked in on InsideTheU.com for more coverage of pro day, the spring scrimmage, the rest of spring practices. Definitely thank everybody for watching, and take care.